Recording. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed our latest episode, which I believe was with Angela Plowhead. Recording this in advance. It's kind of hard to tell nowadays. I'm pretty sure future me will tell you exactly who it was. But today I am honored to sit down with Marc Thielman, who is another candidate. I say another candidate, but the candidate for governor in my eyes. Marc, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, Dave.
So I was explaining to Marc on just a little off the air that this is an interview that I desperately wanted to happen. In fact, the entire what I didn't tell you, the entire point of me doing interviews for the primary was after your performance at Dorchester, I'm like, you know what? Yeah. I have to get these candidates on. Mm-hmm. So thank you.
No, you're welcome.
For the inspiration.
Yep. Yeah, that Dorchester was a fun one.
It really was. And I mean, I've talked to a lot of candidates who were at Dorchester, and they said and probably you'll agree to this, that it was more of a panel than it really was a debate.
Yep. And that's why, you want to have a little flair and style when you're doing that. And but they had a couple gotcha questions in there, and I was very pleased when I got the gotcha question, which was the follow-up on the homeless one. And I knew I would be the only one who could answer it, and I was.
Yes, like I said, as soon as I saw your performance at Dorchester, I'm like, yes, I know that's my candidate. So,
well, thank you.
I've already voted, and I voted for you. I'm not just saying that because you're here. I did.
Oh, no problem. Well, if you've already voted, just kidding. I'm glad to be on, and Vicki was pretty excited, and she made sure I was here and on time and ready to go. So, by the way, Vicki's my campaign manager, in case people want to know.
Yes. A lot of communications. Like I said, it was a very, very tough to coordinate with both our schedules because I'm running a campaign as well. So it happened, and I'm thankful.
Oh, good.
So I want to just get into some issues here. Looking at your website, you have a couple of policies here, and I wanted to see if you could expound on some of it. So the first one I have, as governor, what kind of legislation would you like to see, and what legislation would you like to support, or that would support, to improve our healthcare system?
Well, in legislation is a good thing in a sense, assuming it's compiled well and it's not politicized, which is difficult in this particular climate. So I'm not seeing or sensing that we're going to get a lot of help from the legislature, which is another reason why I'm running for governor. So as governor, I get to appoint heads of agencies. There's 174 of them. And that's really our best chance to get in there and restructure the Oregon Health Authority, which has made a disaster out of healthcare. And the reason I say that is they concentrated all power in one agency. It started in 2015, and then they didn't tell people the truth. The truth is, if you're wondering why the defund the police issue and the many years of defunding of public safety, and prior to that, education was defunded with that. And they would take any dollar they could take from those areas of the state budget, which were rather large and sizable parts of the budget, and move over to healthcare. That Barack Obama's administration would send Oregon $6. And most people don't know that, which is why I'm sharing it now. So OHA went from about 5.6 billion in the first year of its creation, and is now 29.8 billion in 7 years. I mean, that's an insane increase. And what's fueled that is this federal match. So it's a compounding problem. The match went down to around $3 or less under, I think it was $2.85 under Trump. Biden came in, and of course, under the COVID legislation, restored a lot of that. So, my question to you, David, is if you could build a house and get, for every dollar you spend of your money on your house, you got $6 from the taxpayer, how big a house would you build?
Very.
Well, and how frugal would you be? Probably not very.
Yeah.
So OHA is inefficient, and it serves itself. And it's so powerful that now a doctor who's facing some kind of medical board inquiry because they might have given us horrible medicine called hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin, They can go to an attorney law judge to defend their license on the ethics charge. The attorney law judge could say, and this has actually happened, I'm siding with the doctor. OHA, you leave them alone. And then that judgment goes back to the Oregon Health Authority Medical Board, licensing board. And if the majority of the board decides that the judge was in error, they would then take away that doctor's license. So that's the equivalent of you or I going into traffic court, winning against the charge, the judge ruling for us, the defendant, and then the sheriff saying, I disagree with the judge, and then reinstituting the fine. So this is the malarkey of Oregon Health Authority. This is why it needs to be completely broken down, restructured, and regionalized so that it's no longer a centralized czar-like dictatorial branch of the Oregon state government. So I hope that answered your question.
That did, and I didn't know that. So thank you for that. I learned a lot from sitting down with people and talking. But it's kind of, well, it's not kind of, but when you look at it, and you don't have to be a Republican to see that having too much power in one centralized place is very bad, because then what happens is that, well, partisans will be partisan.
Yes.
So we've seen what happens with that. It's just, we've seen a lot of good agencies who were started with the public interest in mind, and you always be wary with public interest, begin to sacrifice their efficiency on the altar of ideology. And Oregon, like I said, partisans will be partisan. You give them power, they will be partisan.
Well, and you can summarize it real simple. What it is that these large centralized agencies serve themselves and not the people. And it's their interests come first and then the people's. So that's why they were, shall we say, a little bit Orwellian during this latest COVID pandemic. I mean, it didn't make any sense. That's why I took the stand I took when I was school superintendent LC against masks, because the evidence was so overwhelming that not only were masks not effective, but they were harming kids in their education and their learning and social emotional development. Well, ethical school boards and ethical school superintendents don't continue to be knowingly keep kids in masks that has been proven to harm them. That's not what good people do. But when I went to the government and said, hey, the science is clear, you need to get rid of these masks, they basically told me that I must comply or else. So I taught them a little lesson. I took a stand with the support of my school board. We gave parents their rights back, and 92% of students showed up to school on that next Monday without masks on. So what does that tell you about where the people were versus the government, which was the Oregon Health Authority in this case?
Right, and you see that across the nation. You saw centralized government, whether it be the federal government or the state government, try to shove down an ideology that was not supported by the facts. And we knew, and we know now that they knew then that it made no sense whatsoever. But because we have allowed these agencies, whether through inaction or through acquiescence, we have allowed these partisans to take over. And I guess this is the theme of the episode. Partisans will be partisan. That you allow people with ideology at the front of their mind to make decisions. They will put their ideology at the front. Evidence be damned, or facts be damned.
Well, and I think I really appreciate you saying the partisan will be partisan. I mean, there's a lot of wisdom in that statement. So, let me give you an example. There's all this sudden, now the president has shifted. President Biden has shifted, and Governor Brown has backed him up, saying there's going to be food shortages. Well, if there's going to be food shortages, a leader should come out and say, we're concerned about food shortages. Here's what we're doing to secure the food supply. Notice they're not saying that. And then they're saying that the 12 food processing plants that have either started on fire, or 2 of which had airplanes crash into them, and they're saying none of those incidences are a cause for concern. Even though, and then the avian flu thing, which is not an epidemic or a pandemic for fowl, and they're slaughtering turkeys and chickens, which, by the way, are things that people eat. So this is what I'm getting at. I am done with progressive half-truths, with them saying it's one thing, when it's really another. You literally would have to win the lottery twice in 1 week to have 12 processing plants spread out over multiple states, start on fire, and have 2 airplanes knock out 2 of them. It should be an issue of grave concern for we the people.
Right. And it should be, like you said, if the governor knows in advance there will be food shortages, where is the plan to where is an implemented plan to serve the people that that elected them? Because it seems like what Governor Brown has been doing for some time now, that's no secret anymore.
No.
She is riding the progressive left bandwagon, and she has taken that all across the Oregon Trail back down to Washington, D.C. several times. And so it's backwards leadership that is going to change, whether people realize it or not. I think a lot of Oregonians sense the shift. I even think Democrats sense the shift. It's where they're running for the hills.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, it's amazing. You know, I got some analytics here from a analytic company here in Oregon, and this was done at the very end of February. But I wanted to share this. I kind of had this prepared for your show. This is unbelievable. So they had 2 categories regarding Governor Kate Brown. And the categories are very, I'm going to get very discouraged or somewhat discouraged with her leadership. And so they did 42% of the 600 and some odd respondents were from the Tri-County area, which is Portland Metro, which is normally the Governor Brown's stronghold of support. So these numbers are just unbelievable. It's shocking that the newspaper didn't cover them, because they should have. 72% or 54%, I'm sorry, said, very discouraged. And then another, whatever it was, what's the difference? The total was 72% between somewhat discouraged and very discouraged, which is a negative support and thinking that almost half of that survey was from the Tri-County area. And the thing that gets me is Kate Brown's aware of that poll, and it doesn't change her behavior one iota. That's terrifying.
Yeah, it's terrifying, and it also puts into perspective just how much our leaders kind of disregard that, because she's, like I said, she's riding that progressive left bandwagon, and well, nothing's going to change. Which is startling, because you would see just for example, if you in office saw that your base was very unhappy, common sense dictates, okay, I have to switch up strategy. But common sense is something that has been lacking within the Progressive Party, which is what they are now. Let's not make two ways about it, for quite a while.
Well, and the thing is, again, you got a lot of wisdom that you're espousing here, because this is what I always try to tell people in politics. Not that I'm a politician, but I've worked with legislators long enough as a strategist and consultant for over a decade to know just how broken the system is. And what I would always tell, what I considered the better of the Senate or the senators or the representatives was, you have two choices in politics. You can be right or you can be effective. And you have to decide which one you're going to be, because rarely can you be both. And of course, the senators and the representatives, they would always get it wrong. They'd say, well, I want to be right. And I kept telling them, no, you want to be effective. And that involves listening to the people, knowing what the needs are, and solving problems, because that's where successful leadership lies. And Kate Brown, if you ask her, she's always right, David. She'll never say she's not right. It's scary, but she's not effective.
Well, not only would she say she's right, the Ministry of Truth, while we're locked in the dungeon, would be telling us that she's right. So
that's the shocking piece,
So I mean, I'm be real here. We'd probably be the first two thrown in.
Well, yeah, but look, here's what the Ministry of Truth is. Okay, the Ministry of Truth says we define what right and wrong is. We're the highest authority on earth, and if you file a complaint against us, we get to investigate ourselves and tell you whether or not we're in or out of compliance. It's beyond insane.
It's ridiculous. That is literally the Oregon government. It
Yeah.
manifests at a federal level.
Yep.
So what we're talking about the Oregon government and its failed leadership, which if you get me started, I will never stop. But let's have a laser focus here. I specifically want to talk about our epidemic with homelessness and drug addiction. We cannot escape it, and I know you've been asked this many times.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to ask you something related and something not related at the same time. Would you, as governor, support citizen-led initiatives or legislator backed initiatives to repeal Measure 110?
Well, absolutely. Matter of fact, on my first day, I will submit a petition initiative if one isn't submitted by then as governor to push out for a vote of the people, because here's why. This is what people need to know, and this is what you're not being told. So on an average year prior to 110, and now what 110 was, just so everybody knows, is it was a petition initiative, a vote of the people in which they lied to the people. So the Secretary of State's office was commensurate in the lie. And it said, we're going to decriminalize drugs and get everybody drug rehab because we shouldn't be putting people with addiction in jail. We should be getting them help. Well, everybody wants people to get help. And so a lot of good-hearted, kind of loving people, they voted for it because, yeah, this is going to get help. The problem is it's the government saying they're going to give help. Well, guess how much help they created in the year that after this bill was implemented or this initiative was implemented? Zero. So they decriminalized the drugs and then didn't follow through with the 7 regional rehab centers. And then they told police you can no longer, you can cite them, you can give them $100 ticket, but if they call a hotline to get help, then the ticket gets forgiven. And if they never go in to pay for the ticket, we're not going to do anything about it. This is insane. So here's what happened. In a normal year, 90, maybe 110, somewhere in that range, most years, were the number of people who would die in Oregon of drug overdoses, usually mostly from the homeless community, not 100%, but a disproportionate from the homeless community, where a lot of people are addicted to drugs. So then they decriminalized the hard drugs and they open up the southern border 18 months ago. Then they decriminalized the hard drugs here in Oregon. And we have a fentanyl heroin epidemic. We have drug cartel grows and just distribution and human trafficking epidemic. And so this last year, we lost over 1,000 of our fellow Oregonians. Now I served in Alsea School District for 11 years. The entire town of Alsea, plus the students we would bus in, didn't add up to that number. So it literally has wiped out whole small towns, if you want to put it in a visual so people get a sense of just how catastrophic that is. And has our governor spoken about it even once? No. See, and this is what I'm saying. If the government ever comes to you and says, we're from the government, we're here to help, you need to be really worried, unless I'm your governor, because here's how this works. Unlike Kate Brown, I'm going to be out every week having a press conference every Tuesday. That's my plan. Some people are vying for Thursdays, but I'm a little partial to Tuesday because that's election day. And I'm going to be talking to the people of Oregon every week and telling them the truth, because when I tell people this on the campaign trail, people are mortified. They don't know. It's scary.
Yeah, when we put it into perspective like that, it really is. It really puts it into context. I've never heard it put exactly like that before. But not only do you have a lot of people dying of fentanyl, what the state of Oregon has essentially done is fostered this atmosphere of acceptance. Mm-hmm. And under the guise of mercy, we have allowed people to kill themselves. It's basically what's happening. And it makes it a lot harder for people who need help, that want to get help, because ultimately, I give this example a lot. If you ask an alcoholic, are you an alcoholic? What are they going to say, Mark?
They're going to say no.
They're going to say no. I don't need help. I can quit when I want to. That is what it's funny to think about it that way, but that's what's happening. It's what Oregon is doing. It's like, so are you addicted to heroin? No.
Exactly.
So it's sad because Governor Brown and the Attorney General that lied to the people thought that for one reason or another probably had the best intentions in mind. But I mean, who's to say? Uh, but you have funds from Measure 110 still with the with OHA. What, $300 million of that is still frozen because they can't decide what they're going to do with it.
Well, look how this works. So they provide no service and they keep all the money. Okay. And 1,000 people die. And the issue is they don't want the rehab centers for the same reason Governor Brown's tried to close all the mental support institutions. And they don't want anything to be criminal. See? And it's insane because we're talking about the very people who defund the police and take the funding and bring it over to healthcare to get the federal match. And then they turn right back around and say, we're not even going to give the 300 million that the people voted for to get people off drugs. But it's even worse than that. Is a lot of these folks have moved into Oregon because drugs are legal now, hard drugs. So we've had an explosion and continues to this day in our homeless population, which only taxes things more. And what does Oregon do? They declare an emergency in Portland and immediately roll out $100 million of giveaways for people living in tents and squalor doing drugs. Now, let me show you how this all works. They get an EBT card. They get $600 and some odd a month. Plus, they all are encouraged, and the state helps them apply for federal Social Security. Most get it within 18 months to 2 years, and then they're on permanent Social Security disability. So between all accounts together, total compensation is over $3,000 a month, and that pretty much funds the drug habit that they engage in. And if they sell a little drugs and do some side hustles, they can do a little better. While throwing garbage around and living in squalor and deteriorating the quality of life in our communities and selling and perpetuating needles in our parks and presenting safety hazards on our off ramps and on ramps. And so when you really get down to it, I want the people of Oregon to understand that our tax dollars are paying for these drug addicted people. That's where they're getting the money. And it's absolutely unconscionable. You cannot have love in your heart, Ted Wheeler, Diane Hardesty, Kate Brown. I could go on. Dan Wagner, the Speaker of the House, Peter Courtney, the former president. I think he's now retired. These people are unkind, uncivil, unloving people, and they will not talk about the problem. Because doing so, one, admits that maybe they contributed to it, and they have a big aversion to accountability. I mean, look at Mike Schmidt, the Multnomah County DA. I did a TikTok the other day right out in front of the Multnomah County Courthouse where I highlighted that because President Biden was going to visit, they cleared out all the homeless in the lot across the street when the off-ramp coming off, I think it's Hawthorne Bridge there. I could be wrong, but it's one of those bridges right by the Multnomah County Courthouse. There's only one homeless deal left. They had pressure washed all the sidewalks, and they had upgraded the art on the plywood third world barricades around the Multnomah County Courthouse to make, to kind of dress them up and make, this is artwork that kids did in elementary schools. Look, you can't put a barricade around your house, David. The city will come and fine you, but the Multnomah County Courthouse gets to. And this is the point I was making. Number two, I said, look, they cleaned all this up. They even emptied the garbage cans for President Biden, but not for you, the people of Portland. And then I bent down to this little grate by this plant. I said, however, they still got some quality control problems. Here's broken glass, big safety hazard. Here's some cigarette butts, some joint butts, marijuana joint butts. Oh, and here's the hypodermic needle right out in front of the courthouse. I'm telling you, wow, this is unbelievable. And where's the media?
Right. It's like they can do it for Biden.
Yeah.
So we know they can do it. They have the ability to do it. They just won't. At this point, they are also, they were part of the problem before, but you look at someone who looks at that, from Portland, I hope, who looks at that and like, well, so they can do it. Well, why aren't they doing it? And, this is why I like to tell people that there is going to be change. Like a lot of people are sick and tired of what has been going on.
Yeah.
So I would like to go back to what you said a little bit earlier. You said that Governor Kate Brown was trying to shut down these mental institutions for people who have mental illness. So would you support revamping of the state hospital?
Oh, absolutely. And here's the thing, whether it's the exact same model as the original state hospital is less important than having regionalized facilities that allow us to support people who have genuine mental illness. Let me give you an example: schizophrenic people, severe bipolar. There is a disproportionate number of mentally ill people who are homeless, living on the streets, and then they get caught up in alcohol and drugs. They self-medicate, and it's unhealthy. It's unhealthy for them. It's unhealthy for the communities, and they end up deteriorating their potential and their value over time, because drugs fry your brain. Meth fries your brain. Your health deteriorates. You lose your teeth. And it's just wrong. And I've seen so many who have gotten out of that lifestyle. I was down at City Teams, I don't know, a few weeks ago, and I got to meet some graduates that were coming out of that program. They were in the detox program for 6 months. They put themselves in, they went through the process, and then they were ready to transition. And all of them had a job lined up. All of them had a kind of a transition housing, and all of them had their dignity back. And I cannot tell you how excited these men were to meet me. And they were men of all colors, race, creeds, and culture. And it was so awesome to have them shake my hand, look me square in the eye, and to see them standing proud with dignity, excited about their future. Isn't that what we should want for all the homeless?
Absolutely.
It's a powerful thing, and we need more programs like that, and we need more institutionalized supports for the severely mentally ill or disabled. And I cannot tell you how important it is to treat schizophrenics well with whatever medicine or supports that work. There's a variety of them, therapies and things. I know it because it's in my own family. I had a brother-in-law, and he was severely schizophrenic, but when he was medicated, you would never know he was schizophrenic. But invariably, he would get off his medicine, invariably, or the program that supported him would run out, or they'd kick him out on the street, and I have to go find him. And every time he got off his meds, he would go back to being severely schizophrenic and at risk. And we're talking about a callous government that says, well, he's not violent, so we're not going to support you. I mean, this is insane. It's insane. When he's on medicine, he can hold a job. He's a pleasant joy to be around. He's a regular person like you or me. And why wouldn't we do that for those who have those kinds of disorders and disabilities? Why wouldn't we want, as a society, a collective society, to give them the support they need so that they can continue to contribute in whatever way possible in a positive way? You have to have love in your heart. You have to care. You have to understand the problem, and you have to be willing to act. And that's what my campaign's been about.
That is, I support that 100%. And if we could go back just for a second, when you said that you would submit one as governor first day, I might beat you to it.
Okay.
So with the help of our newly elected governor, I'd like to see Measure 110 gone as soon as possible. But back to your point.
Amen.
Yes, if we really want to act as a government, or as a people, as a collective society with compassion, we can't prioritize people with mental health solely because they're aggressive. I would think that if you are claiming compassion for your reason for doing things, you would want to help them before they could get aggressive, and
Exactly.
before they're able to put themselves in danger or others. And I've worked in Eugene long enough to know that approach does not work. What they're doing does not work. I have horror stories from that. Will not go into it here, but definitely at some other time, maybe when you come back after you win the primary.
Amen.
But as we're gonna be winding down here, I wanted to ask you two questions here. As governor, I don't think you've ever been asked this. So as governor, Would you support citizen-led initiatives like Measure? Let's see if I can find it here. Like Measure 106 that would prevent taxpayer dollars from going to abortions in wake of the news, in the wake of what we have from the Supreme Court.
Well, the good news is when I'm governor, they have to make a new budget sometime, and they have to pass legislation. And any legislation that provides taxpayer funding to abortion, I'm going to oppose. I'm going to be oppositional. I'll line item veto it. I will jump up and down and have a fit. I will go to those weekly press conferences and explain to people that this is not okay. It's a violation of the First Amendment, which is expression of religion for so many of our citizens that have a moral and ethical opposition to that. It's the same basis behind right to work or the Janus decision that said you cannot be forced to support a union that's politically active and defies your values. And the thing is, I've been incredibly aggressively pro-life. Life begins at conception. I just got challenged the other day in a forum, and I told the oppositional person, "Were you once conceived?" And it got really quiet in the room. Yes. Well, then there you go. That's all the evidence you need that human life begins at conception. That's when it begins. And you were genetically distinct from your mother, I told the naysayer. And you were different flesh. You were connected to your mother, but you were a separate body. So it's not your body, your choice. The constitutional protections are implied to the fetus. That's what the leak decision, basically, I'm just paraphrasing, alludes to. And it doesn't mean that you never engage in that procedure for any reason. Obviously, if there's a choice between the baby and a mom, you have to choose one. Those are tough decisions, but those are the exception, not the rule. And there may be other circumstances that might justify it. In the same way, Kyle Rittenhouse had to go through a procedure before he was allowed to back out on the street because he shot 3 people, and it was determined that he did so in exercise of his natural right to defend and protect himself. And the thing is, natural rights are the basis of our jurisprudence. And this is what I'm getting at. So there may be a process that we can set into place that might facilitate that procedure in extreme cases for people. But in general, as a rule, life begins at conception, separate bodies, separate DNA, separate flesh. And we need to stop aborting our future potential here in this country. It's wrong.
Absolutely. And just last question here for you. So we know that the way that they connected taxpayer dollars was through House Bill 3391.
Yeah.
And that was declared an emergency bill. So it did not go to the public to vote. In occasions like this, do you believe that the legislature abused its power by pushing this bill without public concern, or without the public being able to voice their concerns on this?
Oh, 100%. That's why they closed the building. That's why they barred the people from the process. That's why they passed that bill when they knew they wouldn't have a storm of 1,000 people storming into the building because it was all shut down. And here's the thing. I want the public to understand this. What you were alluding to is that for every bill progressive Democrats pass, they declared an emergency. Now, I want you to see this. An emergency is supposed to be rare, and it's supposed to be extreme. And I'm here to tell the public, I've been in that building plenty. And once they started that emergency clause, it took less than 2 years or 2 sessions for every bill to have an emergency clause, every single one. So every bill's an emergency now. And the reason they do that is so you can't postpone the implementation of that law for a referendum. That's why the Democrats declared an emergency. So then the law will go into place. You cannot stop it unless you do a initiative petition. And by the time you get that through with your signatures, you're off till the next election. You cannot stop it.
So will you as governor support getting rid of emergency clauses in bills?
Yeah, I believe it should be on the coupon system. So I had a teacher back in middle school, and she said, you get 5 hall passes a year, and you would turn in your coupon, see? And so I'd be willing to give them 5 emergency clauses a session. And any other bill that comes through with an emergency clause, I'm going to veto until they figure it out.
Well, Mark, it was a great conversation. Thank you for making time out of your busy schedule to come talk to me. Again, absolute privilege. I would definitely like to have you back once you win your primary, and
Amen.
going forward. Whatever I can do to help your campaign out. Vicky has my email. You just let me know.
You bet. We'll be in touch. So just so everyone knows, it's Mark with a C. Sometimes people get confused. C stands for conservative. So it's Mark FOR. So Mark FOR. So mark4oregon.com. Encourage everybody to go to that website, check it out. We are a self-funded campaign, grassroots. So we're going to request donations all the way up till the last day, because literally we're putting ads out as we raise the money, and it's a wonderful thing. So far, people have been very faithful. So David, you're another part of that. So thank you for having me on.
Thank you for coming, and again, I will be in touch after you win your primary.
Amen. You bet.
All right.
All right.